Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime. And I am your host, as always, Professor Prime. And I want to talk about math in Dragon Ball. And not for the first time on this channel. But before I get too far into it, there's something that I want to say. Last time on Math in Dragon Ball, Professor Prime looked at the entire Dragon Ball franchise. And he talked about the video game, he talked about the anime, he talked about the manga, and more, and how math was used throughout each of those things. And then Professor Prime took things to the meta level. And now today, he returns back to the world of math in Dragon Ball. And he's coming in from the video game realm this time around. And probably not for the last time. So let's get hyped, let's get started with this new episode of Math in Dragon Ball. Let it begin. Alright, so I want to talk about math in Dragon Ball, which is something that I have done on this channel, like I just said. And in another video, I talked about gaming, and that wasn't my only gaming video, but in this particular one, I was talking about the combat in gaming, and I brought up Xenoverse 2 in that particular video amongst other games. And in this particular video, what I want to do is I want to take a particular Dragon Ball game, and I want to talk about the math in that game, in that combat, and let that illustrate some points that I want to say about math in Dragon Ball. Now, if you're wondering, I actually wanted to talk about a few games, but after a lot of takes and having those things be very, very long, I wanted to really focus in. So I might actually return to some games in some other games in the future, because the truth is, Dragon Ball is a huge franchise. There's a lot of video games with it. A lot of those video games are, in fact, fighters. But the truth is, with a lot of those games, right, they have a lot of other elements in them too, right? Because you can get a traditional fighter, you could get an RPG. You can get even more specific and get an RPG that is also a card game. So it gets kind of crazy. Yeah. So with that in mind, I want to talk about Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 because it is my favorite Dragon Ball game, and I really dig it. And there's a lot of math in it. So with it, I'd say that there are parts of it that are like a traditional fighter, and some other parts of it that are very specific, and there's math in it no matter how you spin it. So I will start by talking about things in versus mode, like how that will typically go, and then talk about some other parts of the game and how that all ties together. So if you talk about versus mode, let's say you're playing your friend or the computer, there's a couple things with that. So you can choose to adjust your settings. Well, for starters, you can pick your character, and you can pick their normal settings, or you can pick their custom version where you can go in and you can make adjustments to how you want this character to be in this particular match. Now, with that in mind, we'll talk about the custom part a little later, but let's talk about if you're just picking someone normal and going from there. And I mean, some of the things bleed over into the custom part anyway. So when you are picking a battle, when you go to versus mode and you battle someone, you can pick the amount of time for the match. I usually choose, infinity, just saying, let's not make time a factor, but you could have time battles. That's the thing that you can do. And you can also pick the health and of your character and the opponent's character, and go from there. And your setting and whatnot. So then when you get to the actual screen, there's a couple things that are going on with it, a couple things to monitor. The big two are health and key. And with the health, it is set up in an interesting way and what a traditional purpose. Because like right in most fighting games, you're trying to minimize damage towards yourself while maximizing damage towards your opponents, and this is no different here. So there's that, and there's math in that, right? So you have a certain amount of bars going in, and you could adjust it in the beginning, like before the match starts. But the idea is that you have a certain amount of gauges, whatever you decided that number to be, and each gauge has a color associated with it. And as you take damage or your opponent takes damage, you start to see the other color show up. So, for instance, if you like maxed out things, right? Like you might start with like a light blue color, it's kind of close to white, and as you start seeing that bar, I'm sorry, as you start taking damage, you start seeing that bar start to show more of a like darker blue, for instance, and then you'll eventually get down to like a darker green and lighter green and yellow and orange, all that good stuff. But the idea is like each bar that you have also represents a certain amount of damage that you're taking. So, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1,000 points that you have for each of those bars, and that lets you know like how much damage you can take. So if I'm receiving like 1,000 uh, damage points, it's like, oh, that takes away 1,000 of my points. That's a whole gauge, and you'll see a different color by the time that's done. I don't want to focus too much on the health. I just thought it was like interesting, and it's just to say that there's a lot of math in that. But then the other big part that you'll be monitoring throughout the battle that leads into a lot of different things is key. So with your health bar, that's a horizontal bar that it changes colors as you take more damage. Now with your key bar, you'll have these yellow bars where you'll have 7 vertical bars, right? That could be filled with key. Each of your characters, each character that you're playing as has a base set of key that you can in fact raise as you go on, right? And with that base, like if you were to dip below that, that would charge automatically. But if you're trying to get like higher amounts of key, you'll have to physically charge or use your melee attacks. And so you have to monitor those 7 gauges, but you also have to monitor your opponent's key. And what does key allow you to do in this game? Now, I mean, if you've played it, you already know, but it allows you to do several things. So one of the big things it allows you to do special attacks, and with these special attacks, a lot of them are beam attacks. They consume ki, but they do more damage than the melee attacks. And some of them are stronger physical attacks than the melee ones are. So they do a decent amount of damage, but they also take up ki. And so when you're thinking about that, right, you have to, have some resource management going on here. It's like, what do you want to use your ki for? And so, like special attacks, that's one thing, right? And just to kind of give you a reference, like if I'm doing like some melee attacks, maybe I do like 30 damage, which if you're looking at each gauge and that's 1,000 points, you're not really doing that much damage. But then I might use a special attack, right? And I might fire something off. Like I might do a Kamehameha or something like that, or a Gatling gun, what have you. The idea there is now each of those will vary from character to character, situation to situation, but I might do something like, let's say, 200 damage. Now that's significant, right? That's taking a bit more. That's like 40% of a whole gauge. Now, Ki allows you to do special attacks like we mentioned, but it also allows you to do ultimate attacks, which take up significantly more damage. Like, it's not uncommon for some of them to take an entire gauge, if not more, depending on the character and technique. Now, these can be very, very strong physical attacks, or they can be very strong, very, very strong beam attacks. Now, here's where things get interesting. So, you have your traditional amount of ki, right? And you're keeping an eye on that. Now, to do the ultimate attacks, you need to be in hyper mode. I think that's what it's called in that game. And the hyper mode, though, you can activate that as long as you have any ki, but you have to be careful with it because, like, if you were doing an alternate attack and you were to miss, it would consume most of the ki, and then you'd be left in a fatigue state, which, if you're not going for it, is kind of hard to get into. But It's possible if you're not careful. And so you want to keep an eye on that and keep an eye on your opponents so they can do ultimate attacks as well. The other thing that hyper mode allows you to do is to do Dragon Rush, and the thing with Dragon Rush is like it's a pre-scripted cinematic where you have like three stages to it potentially, like one of the three stages. So the idea here is that like your character, and it depends on the character. If you're doing a Dragon Rush attack, they're going towards the opponent and they're doing something specific, some sort of attack. Now, at the first stage, you have the opportunity to press a button. They have the opportunity to press a button. Now, if they press the same button as you, it stops cold right there and you take some damage as well as them. Now, if you get to the second stage, it's neutral. You don't like they don't take any more damage past hitting them, and you don't take any. But if you make it to the third step and get stopped there though, you do still get to do some damage, but just not as much as if you hit them with a finisher. Now, if they can't stop you at all, you get to do the finisher. If they can't press the same button at you at any of those three times, then you can hit them with a finisher. Then there can be a generic finisher that varies character to character, but there could be a special finish. Like you might have Piccolo, and you might have like him being able to do the special beam cannon, and that would do significantly more damage at the end of that step. With that in mind, you have a better idea with the key. And one of the other big things with key is that it does allow you to teleport, and it does take up a significant amount of key unless you can have an item that takes away from that a bit. And the idea is like this could be very useful because if you're like hit, then or about to be hit, you can teleport behind your opponent and potentially get the jump on them. But you know it works both ways. And the thing is, you can also like turn this into a pursuit sort of thing. Like you can teleport behind them and get them, or like you can shoot a beam at them, and if you were to hit, then you could teleport and start that chain. And it's really fun to do, by the way. So there's a couple things that you know you're looking at, and it can get kind of complicated if you're not careful. But like if you're used to it, right? You're doing all these crazy things, and you're doing a lot of math in a short amount of time. Because you know I'm looking at the health gauges, I'm looking at the key gauges, I'm deciding what I want to do, and so this is just like this is you know if I'm fighting the computer or if I'm fighting someone, or in like a normal setting. Because the truth is you can customize each of these characters, and the way you do that is if you go to the customize option, then you have the ability to fill it with 7 capsules, and these capsules can do several different things. And one of the big things is you can do transformations. And that's pretty cool. And the transformations do take up a certain amount of key. Like, or sorry, they take a certain amount of key to get to. So let's say if I wanted to go Super Saiyan, then maybe I want to have four full bars. And then once I change over to Super Saiyan, for instance, then my base key for that character will change. Which would be cool. So like if it was 3, then you know that gets bumped up a little bit, right? And you can play that game with a lot of different transformations. Anyway, with the capsules, you could do several different things. You can also have support options. You can also do fusions and things like that. And you gotta weigh your options because you only get 7 of these capsule slots. And how do you get items for those? Well, you gotta play the story mode. And through the story mode, you gotta keep things in check there, right? Because you know you're going from battle to battle, and you know you gotta weigh your time against all of that. And then as you're like progressing, you're building up money, and with that money, you can buy additional capsules. And you know sometimes it's attack capsules, sometimes it's support, sometimes you know stat changing, and there are options to like wish. Sorry, there is an option to wish for the Dragon Balls in that. And with the Dragon Balls, you know, you can wish for new characters. You could do this, you could do that. It's a lot. And the idea is once you're going through the story mode, you know, you beat that enough times, you can unlock all the characters. You can get like all the different capsules, and then you have a lot more options to consider. Because like you got 7 slots for the capsules, but like which capsules do you want to use? What's going to help you dish out the most damage, what's going to help you not take some, what's going to help you maybe reduce the amount of ki that you're going to have to use in some situations. So there's a lot of math in all of that. And it is without a doubt one of my favorite games of all time. And that's still true now. So I have talked a lot about this game in this video. And I'm hoping that through that people can see like the math that's being used and realize that if you're playing a game like this, you're doing a lot of math in a quick amount of time, and that's insane to me. And there's a lot of coding that goes into all this too, because I've only talked about the gameplay, but there's a lot of math that it takes to code this sort of game. There's a lot of math in the money that it took to make this game. There's a lot of math within the world of that game and how that is composed. There's a lot of math behind all of it, and that's crazy to me. That's beautiful to me. And with a lot of other Dragon Ball games, you'll have some of the things that I've just said on the tail end, but you'll have like different gameplay mechanics, and math is important to all of it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video if you've like stuck with it the entire time. And I hope you have a different perspective on math and how that really is in everything, because it goes beyond just what you learn in class. Math is everywhere and in everything. It is not just limited to academia. What we learn in school is but a small cog in a large machine, and I hope people realize that more. So I hope you enjoy this video. I'll see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.